Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Nandi. If you do know me, welcome back to another video, you guys. In today's nurse practitioner tips and tricks video, I am going to be talking to you guys about, this is actually one of my most requested videos, what to expect in nurse practitioner school or in your nurse practitioner program. So I'm going to be talking to you guys and letting you know everything that you should expect, things you should know. And yeah, before we get into the video, please take the time right now to subscribe to the channel. And let's go ahead and hop into it. Okay, so first things first. In order to be prepared about what to expect in your nurse practitioner program, we have to know the basics, okay? And I separated this video into certain sections. So section 1, we're going to talk about the basics. Basics meaning you need to know whether or not you're going to be a full-time or a part-time student. And the reason why this is important is because semester-wise, things will differ for you, as in how many classes you will take, how many semesters it will take you to graduate. These are things that you have to know. I'll give you an example. For myself, I was in an accelerated MSN program, which was 4 semesters, okay? And I did about 12 credit hours each semester. So that was anywhere between 4 to 6 classes a semester. So it is very important that you know whether you're full-time or part-time. You should expect not to have a summer break if you're doing an accelerated program like I did. Also, depending on the program, you are to expect to be either online or in-person classes. So depending upon whether your program is all online or you have in-person classes, you need to know these things, and this will vary depending upon your personal program, okay? All of my classes were online. My entire MSN program was online. Next, we're going to get into the classes. So this will be the next topic. We're going to talk about classes, okay? My specific program had classes designated on specific days, okay? So for example, I believe our classes were only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's been a minute, but we had like 2 days out of the week that were designated just for classes. Those were class days. But it varied depending upon your specialty. So even though my classes were like Tuesdays and Thursdays, like adult Gero may have had classes Mondays and Wednesdays, it varied. But you need to know what days your classes will be, okay? So we were expected to attend all of our online classes on those days, and then the other days during the week, we were expected to be at clinical and utilize those other days as days to obtain clinical hours. Now, you also should expect, for me, I would say to make it easier, you should expect to have some classes that are like core classes and some classes that are specialty classes. Core classes are the classes, some of which you took in your BSN, but you'll be taking them again at an advanced level. For example, advanced pharm, advanced patho, advanced health assessment. I would also say core classes are classes that everyone takes in the masters, no matter the specialty. So they can have everybody take like a leadership class or something like that. I would consider that a core class because everybody is taking it no matter what the specialty, okay? Then you also have your specialty classes. Your specialty classes will focus on everything you need to know, obviously regarding your specialty. For example, I was a pediatric primary care student, so all the other classes outside of my core classes were pediatric courses, okay? But if you are, let's say, a family nurse practitioner student, you should expect to take a mixture of pediatric classes, as well as classes like adult gero, because you'll be seeing a mixture of patients, okay? You should expect moderate to heavy amount of homework, and I also put in parentheses on my notes, depending on your specialty. My specific specialty, I feel like, was very homework heavy, but some people and some of the friends that I know in some of the other specialties, might not have had as much homework as I had. They still had homework, but I still think my program had quite a bit more homework. I would say mine was a little bit heavy. So it varies depending upon specialties, depending upon schools, things like that. The third thing that you should expect, the third section we're going to be talking about today, is clinicals, okay? If your school requires it, again, if your school requires it, so this is something that you need to find out, you need to know before attending your program, before even starting. You should expect to find your own preceptors if your school requires, okay? If your school does ask you to find your own preceptor, then you want to search for your preceptors early on, okay? My school found preceptors for us. I believe this is something that they changed though, so just be aware of that if you need to find your own people, because you don't want this to be a surprise to you. You need to know this ahead of time in advance so you can be prepared. Another thing that you should expect in the master's program, in your nurse practitioner program, you should expect to complete a lot of clinical hours, okay? Clinical hours can vary depending upon your program and your institution. I'll give you an example. There's some schools like Georgia State, for example. At least when I was completing my nurse practitioner program, Georgia State only required their students to complete the amount of hours that you needed just to be able to sit for your board. So the minimum amount of hours needed to sit for your boards, that's all they required, which at the time was 500 hours. My school, I went to Emory University, required us to have 780 clinical hours. 780 clinical hours. That's a lot of hours, okay? So be sure you are aware and you know this. You want to know how many hours you need to graduate, and you should expect to complete a lot of them. You should also expect to commute and possibly travel far to different clinical sites. There were some people in my program that were traveling so far. And my school found preceptors for us at the time, okay? Because this may have changed. But I had one friend and she was traveling like almost close to Alabama for her clinical placement. We're in Georgia, okay? Close to Alabama border. Close to the Georgia border to go to Alabama is crazy, okay? So I'm just saying, worst case scenario, expect to travel far and just be mentally prepared for this. The fourth thing that I'm going to talk to you guys about that you should expect in your nurse practitioner program has to do with simulations and OSCEs, okay? So we did simulations in our BSN. I feel like everybody probably watching this video, you know what a simulation is. You probably all already did it plenty of times before, I'm sure, in your BSN program. However, in my BSN program, we didn't do OSCEs, okay? So like I said, simulations, everyone is aware of what they are. Majority of the time, my school did simulations, I would say, with like dummies, mannequins, okay? OSCE. If you are unfamiliar with what a OSCE is, a OSCE stands for Objective Structured Clinical Examination. OSCE. According to online, a OSCE is a strategy used to evaluate a student's clinical skill performance under a variety of simulated conditions. If I personally had to define and describe what an OSCE is just like a simulation, but it's the next level, okay? It's the next level. It's a provider level simulation. We usually did these at my school with patient actors, so real people. Like I don't know why I'm doing this. They were real people, okay? But because my specialty was pediatrics, often the patient actors were the parents, and the child would be a mannequin or a dummy, okay? Because obviously they weren't going to let us practice on real children. But we did have patient actors for parents. Okay, great. So pretty much what would happen is we would go into a patient room and you wouldn't know what to expect. So they would set us up time-wise, and you wouldn't know. You would go into a patient room. You wouldn't know whether or not you were getting a sick child or a well child visit. So you were being watched the entire time. Either the professor was in the room or the professor was watching you like on camera from another room. Either way, you being watched. Okay. You would have to do your assessment. You would have to diagnose, treat the patient accordingly. Okay. Then after seeing the patient, you would have to exit the room and they would have you type up a SOAP note. Once you were done with your SOAP note, you would have to submit it then and there, and then move on to see your next OSCE patient. So the OSCEs were timed, they were graded, and you had a certain amount of time to spend in the room with the patient. You also had a certain amount of time to type up and submit your SOAP note. So both, at least at my school, both the patient actor and the professor watching, both of them would grade you. So you would have two separate grades. They usually, I think, would like average them or whatever. But either way, they both were grading you. And I am talking about the OSCE because it is something new. If you haven't experienced it, you should possibly expect to experience it. I'm not sure. I believe that most programs, I know for sure they do OSCEs in medical school because I have a friend in medical school. So I know they do them in medical school. I'm assuming they do them on like in every provider level program. So just expect it, okay? If not something similar, you should definitely expect simulations, even if they don't really say, oh, it's an OSCE. You should expect to have simulations in your nurse practitioner program, okay? These were all of the most important things that I felt like was important to review with you guys. All of the most important things that you should expect in your nurse practitioner program. If you have any specific questions for me regarding anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. You guys know I try really hard to get back to you guys. You can always DM me on Instagram as well if you have any specific questions. But I feel like we covered the most important things. Just expect everything that I talked about in this video, but also do your own research before you even sign the dotted line to go into any program, you guys. Be sure you do your research on the institution. Be sure you look up everything that I talked to you guys about today. You want to know about clinical hours. You want to know about your semesters. You want to know about finding your preceptor. You just need to know all of those things and be prepared before you even start your program. Ask questions. And if you aren't sure about anything, make sure you email the appropriate people and find out the answers to your questions before you start your program. You don't want any unexpected surprises because these programs can be, stressful. You know what I mean? They can be a lot. And I feel like the best way to reduce stress, at least in my opinion, is to be mentally prepared. To be prepared and to go in knowing everything that you possibly need to know before starting. Okay? I really hope that you found this video helpful. Like I said, leave me questions if you have them for me. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.